Привет, российская сеть роботов. I like to greet the Russian botnets in their native language.
Oh, we may have
Did we
lost
lose Eric?
I just accidentally left the webinar. I'm coming right back.
Maybe that was the Russians forcing you.
Yeah, they're like, nah, we don't like you anyway. So
There you are.
See, that's one of those little screw ups I don't think I'm going to do, and then I do it. So we're all back.
You gonna hit the recording? We've got you.
Okay, welcome everybody. We're going to hit record, and we are underway right now.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Running into the Fog. It's a podcast that the Johnson brothers, these two little guys out in Wisconsin, co-host together, and we're having a lot of fun with. Eric, how are you today?
I am awesome, Derek. How are you doing?
Doing good. Really excited for our guest today, Melanie Seward. We call her Mel Wing Seward. You're going to hear probably variations of that today. Mel, how are you?
I'm great. I'm great. I'm so happy to be here.
Well, we started talking about this in early March, and is it true that this is your first podcast ever?
Ever, for real. No one's ever asked me before, so I'm so excited and I'm scared.
No need to be scared.
We'll be gentle.
Given your experience and your personality, I'm just shocked that nobody's asked. So, maybe that's a precursor of great things to come. And I bet once this gets out there into the open, you'll probably get a bunch of requests.
Maybe.
You may not like us after this.
No, I'll always love you.
So today on Running into the Fog, episode 44, it happens to be July 19th of 2022 already. And Melanie Seward is, she needs no introduction in the intelligence circles. She's someone, everybody that has sort of been there and done that, both as a producer of intelligence as well as a consumer of intelligence. We're going to spend a lot of time jamming on that theme today, but I want to start today's session and then give Mel a little something to react to. And I warned her that I was going to start this way, but what I have in front of me, for those of you watching on the screen, is an edition of the Competitive Intelligence magazine, and this particular edition happens to be from January, February of 2005. So that marks right away how long we've known each other, and it goes back even a little bit longer than that.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
And in it, you write the president's perspective, and this is you essentially doing your off-ramp as president of SCIP, now it's called the Strategic and Competitive Intelligence Professionals Organization. Back then it was the Society of Competitive Intelligence Professionals, which we still, I think many of us still call it that. And you write, my time as president of SCIP is drawn to a close. The time I've spent working as a volunteer leader for SCIP has been both challenging and rewarding. I'm not going to read all this to you. I'm going to pick a couple of segments. I too have gone through a tremendous change, both personally and professionally. I believe that I'm stronger for it. Leadership comes in many forms. During my 4 years on the board, I've had the opportunity to learn from different types of leaders and to gain insight into my own leadership style. And you say then these 4 important lessons that I'd like to share with you. Lesson 1, leadership does not have to be loud. Lesson 2, be true to yourself. Lesson 3, it takes a team. And lesson 4, never give up. So 17 or so years later, would you say those 4 lessons are still true in your world?
Absolutely. I live them every day. And I think about the people who I served on the board with. I had the chance to be on the board a couple of times. And the year that I was on the board and I was president of the board, we went through a lot. It was a really difficult and challenging time because we ran out of money. I was at post 9/11 when people weren't going to conferences. There were so many things, war in Iraq. There were just so many things that were conspiring against us. And there's a lot of things I learned in that period of time that I've carried with me. And I think about some of the people who, when I say leadership doesn't have to be loud, that's a huge part of there were a couple of people who served on the board at that time with me who were phenomenal leaders, but they just weren't in your face. They were actually kind of behind the scenes leading. And there's a couple, Mike Susong, if you remember him, Dale Faringer, you remember Dale, of course, just phenomenal leaders who just guided and helped me through what was a really difficult time. And also just, didn't give up. We could have given up. We could have done a lot of, it would just been easy to walk away from it. And this group of people chose not to. And I think that's where the never give up fell in. And I use all the time that. And then so I also, the teamwork aspect, today as a leader, I lead a fairly small team, but I've led as many as 40 to 50 people. And there's no one person who can be the best of anything. It takes a lot of different types of people to come together to make something great. And so that was a huge lesson for me. I think I was at the age where I thought I could do everything. I was kind of invincible and I could do anything. And what I've realized is that you're so much better when you have people around you who make you stronger and compensate for the things that maybe you're not as good at. So today I have a team of people who are, I'm not the world's most detail-oriented person at all. And I have a team of people who are more detail-oriented than me. So that helps a lot. So those are some of the things, definitely carry them with me wherever I go. And I'm very grateful. I'm very grateful for the time that I got to lead Skip. It was hard, but it was one of the most rewarding things I've ever done.
That's great. Eric, I'm going to turn it to you. Any questions for Mel to get us started?
Correct me if I'm wrong, Mel, but you are the only one that I can think of, maybe not the only one ever, but the only one I can think of who's been Skip president twice, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I think that might be, that might be true.
So that's a pretty cool vote of confidence, I would say.
Or a vote of insanity, maybe. I don't know. Yeah. I think I have a lot of loyalty to the organization, and while I'm not involved, I'm a lifetime member. I'm a fellow. I'm a Catalyst Award winner, and I take the relationships that I made through Skip, some of the best relationships I have. I know some of y'all are on the call right now. I mean, on the podcast right now, are some of the best people I've ever known. So I just had a hard time saying no, even though in my heart, I was like, no, I can't do this again. Okay. I'll do it again.
Well, and it's interesting to me that, Skip as an organization, while it has had its ups and downs and kind of struggled to find that sustainability, model that would allow it to just sort of autopilot a little bit. That's sort of what I see happening in leadership everywhere, though. And I mean, running an organization like Skip, or leading, I'll say, as from a constituency standpoint, trying to give voice to, I think, the core practitioner group, which makes up the majority of the membership at Skip, and then really to help the board ultimately to direct the offer such that the staff could then execute on that offer and deliver that offer in a way that was imperfectly imitable by others. I mean, that's really what strategy is, right?
Yeah. I think what's interesting too, when you have a group of volunteer leaders who are inherently analytical people, I mean, by nature, I think most folks who are in the intelligence community, just by the nature of the work, are analytical. And I think it sometimes could be challenging to move from analyzing and solving the problem to action. And so I do think that that's one of the interesting parts of, any board is an interesting experience of leadership in any way, but I think a group of very analytical people, I think we could definitely find a lot of different ways to look at a problem, which was sometimes really great. We really got some things out that maybe we wouldn't have otherwise. But yeah.
Let's go back to the start of your career, Melanie, okay. and maybe for our listeners, just share a little bit about how you got into doing what you used to do, and then how you used some of those early career stops, if you will, to get to where you are today.
Okay. Well, let me start by saying that I went to a small liberal arts college in Maryland. I'm not going to go all the way through my whole history, but I discovered two really important things in college, and they were beer and boys. And I, I had a lot of fun in college. And when I got out of college, I couldn't go to grad school. My grades weren't good enough. I just couldn't get in. And in some ways I was disappointed and I wanted to go to grad school, but in some ways I was really blessed because I found a path that I didn't know I was looking for. And that was, I ultimately became a librarian at a business librarian. And then I found my way. I worked for a law firm. I thought I wanted to be a lawyer. I didn't want to be a lawyer. Lots of early, missteps. I think everybody goes through that early in your career. And I somehow found my way into the intelligence world through Delmarva Power, which, a public utility in Delaware. And I think that's where I met Miss Ellen Naylor. And I did what was called, was market research, but it really was competitive intelligence. And a public utility, you'd think, why do they need competitive intelligence? Well, there was a lot of deregulation kind of getting some traction at that point in time. So I started in the utility industry, and what I was able to leverage was the skill of finding information and being able to piece together different pieces of information. And, back in those days, we didn't have the internet. I'm really dating myself, I know, but we did have dialogue and LexisNexis and search services. And, it was a really different world, and newspaper clippings, and I was crazy. But I was able to take that and then translate that into being able to find information, into interpreting and understanding what that information meant. So utility industry, and then I moved to First USA Bank, which was a large credit card company. It's now JP Morgan Chase Credit Card Services, and I worked there in intelligence and marketing strategy and market research for about 8 years, and I really covered the gamut of just about anything that you could do related to intelligence in that role. I took a little swing over into the consulting side and spent about 1.5 years with a competitive intelligence consulting firm, and quickly discovered that I'm really better on the practitioner side. And so had the opportunity to go to Whirlpool Corporation. I'd been mostly in financial services, and moving over to Whirlpool, manufacturer of appliances. And I ran I worked in the cooking business for a little while, where we did intelligence and marketing strategy and market research for the cooking business. And then I moved into be the head of global competitive intelligence for Whirlpool. And that was a phenomenal experience. I learned a ton. Part of what I learned there was, and actually I had a boss there who said to me, you're at an age where you have to choose a path. Is the path going to be that you're going to be a marketer, or is the path going to be that you're going to be an intelligence professional? And at the time I thought, well, I'm an intelligence professional. That's just what I am. And so that's what I'll be. And it's not that I didn't find it satisfying, because I did. I really love the work, and I still love to do this type of work. But when my time at Whirlpool came to an end, I moved to Atlanta, where I moved into more of a marketing role, and I became the head of marketing for one of Equifax lines of business. And I kind of wanted to get back into financial services, but I didn't want to work for a bank. So it was kind of a good segue for me. And at that point, I started moving much more out of intelligence and insights and into marketing, although I did run market research, competitive intelligence, and customer experience for Equifax for a few years. And then I've just slowly kind of moved away and moved into marketing. And I spend all my time now as a practitioner, as a marketing professional, and have moved away from, being the intelligence gatherer to being the intelligence user. So it's been an interesting transition. I think one of the things that is maybe a good thing, maybe not good thing, but one of the things about moving into marketing is about connecting dots, the same way that intelligence is about connecting dots, because you're looking for behavior patterns. You're looking for, how do you get someone to buy your product? There's a lot of similarities in some of the mindset around marketing that you get from intelligence. So I feel like that is something that has served me really well. So here I am. I lead marketing now for a payment startup company called SellPoint Digital. We are headquartered in London, located all over the world, literally. We have people just everywhere. We're small, and we are trying to grow really rapidly. We have a really cool product, really cool solution. And my job is to figure out how to help us sell that product. And one of the things I'm selling against is not competitors, but inertia. And it's an interesting and it's an interesting difference in thinking about your strategy when you're selling, because nobody knows they need what we have until they have it. It's like an iPod. You didn't know you needed an iPod until you had one, because you thought, I have Walkman, why would I need an iPod? And then you get an iPod and you think, how did I ever live without this? And then you get your smartphone, and how did I only have an iPod? Like, I can do everything on this now. So we're trying to make those changes in the payments industry. So
would it be fair to say you're trying to create the category? And
we are, absolutely.
And
yep.
Now that the next challenge before you is to determine how you use your intelligence background to set the table, if you will, to create that category for SellPoint Digital.
Exactly. And you can't go out and just, you have to look at, I think back to like 5 forces and the role that alternative products or alternative solutions, substitutes, that's really been important in understanding how we think about competition for this company, because it is not super easy to get to the root of the problem when you can't ask somebody, does this solve your problem? Because they don't even know they have a problem.
Yeah.
So
wow, I was writing like the Dickens, and I wrote down 8 or 9 different stops.
Okay.
Since you started that business school as a librarian, and I know there's more to unpack there, and we might have time to do that in the second half of our hour. And I also want to come back, after we let the Russian botnets depart here in about 13 minutes. I want to come back to what you said, beer and boys, because I'm not sure it was in that order. I want to dig a little deeper there. In the meantime, Eric, I know you're muted and running some things in the background. What other things are you dying to know about Melanie here today?
Well, I have to do a quick little housekeeping episode here for just a second, because if I don't, I won't do it ever. We have a little something called POAPs, Proof of Attendance Protocol, and that's that QR code you see on your screen. And the easiest way to collect your POAP is to download the POAP mobile app, hit Mint, hit Scan QR code, and suddenly I'm in a proof of humanity test to prove that I'm not one of those bots. But that's how you get your POAP, and we use them for stuff later. Like last week, Suki Fuller won a copy of Judy Levitt's book about talking tea, who was our guest last week. And I understand, Melanie, you've just bought that book and you've made it through chapter 1 already. So fantastic way in which to spread the news here. So please scan that and grab it. We will be closing that, and there'll be another 15 POAPs to collect during Unspeakable when we let the social folks go. But if you haven't signed up yet, visit. They'll put a website address into chat here, and you all can join that. But that's my quick administrative task here. Melanie, tell us what you would tell a woman starting out in the CI business in 2022 that you wish someone had given you as advice when you got started in this line of work.
Ooh, that's an awesome question. When I started doing this, there were a few women. There were not a lot of women doing this work, and there were a few who were pretty, well known and people that I admire. But one of the things that no one told me was don't be afraid, and don't be afraid to be wrong sometimes. Because I think as women in particular, we tend to think we can't make a mistake, or we have to be right. And sometimes you're wrong. And in intelligence, there's always an element of unknown and unknowable, as my old boss used to say. And if you get to the unknown, of course, you're going to make a mistake sometime. And so I wish that somebody had told me that was okay, because I probably would have been better at early warning and providing, maybe not complete insight. It doesn't have to be 100% accurate. It just needs to be directional in certain cases. I think that's an important thing. But not being afraid. I was always afraid that if I told somebody that something bad was going to happen, or that, that there was a potential for problems with the business or whatever, I always felt like it was going to come back to me personally, and it doesn't. It's actually the right thing to do. So being brave. Yeah, and it's okay to also, I say this all the time with just in general, it's okay to be a badass. I was really good at intelligence. I am really good at intelligence. I'm still really good at it, even though I don't do it every day. And it's okay to be a badass and say, you know what, I know what I'm talking about. So just listen to me.
Totally. That's super good advice. And, I'm always puzzled by that higher standard, I think, that women are often held to, that perfection standard. And, that's one of the things that I think, sort of as allies, if you will, in trying to help make this a somewhat more equitable world, that we as sort of straight white men need to, learn a few things about, is how do we help share that power a little bit and raise all boats, so to speak. So
I think that level of perfectionism is not necessarily men holding us to that either. It's us holding ourselves to it, because
sure.
I think I could go on for hours on this topic, but we think we have to be all things to all people, and I think it's just part of the way we're taught as girls. And I think what I would ask allies and dads is to teach your daughters that it's okay to not be everything to everybody, and it's okay to be selfish sometimes, and it's okay to own your own power. Because I don't know that, I think girls are much better at that now than they were when I was a kid, and certainly when my mom was a kid. But it's okay to do that. So dads, you guys both have daughters. You tell them it's all right.
I think they know that, actually. And if in speaking with Derek's daughters over the years, I think they know that just as well as mine do, that they'll give us permission when we get to do things.
Well, yeah, there is
if
that
I'm
too.
right, Derek, right?
That's at least representative of my 11-year-old redhead, Sage. Her younger sister, Rain's 9, and she's starting to grasp that concept. But I actually, Eric and I have had this debate a number of times. Maybe you've been in on that conversation once or twice, Mel, but we're on record, and I'll go on record again by saying, I think women are better at competitive intelligence, and it has to do with one word, and that word is tenacity. There is a sense of tenacity that I've seen in bigger picture, on average, demonstrated by females in our industry as compared to the men. And I'm not trying to get in trouble with the guys. I am one in our space, but there's a level of tenacity that I think women demonstrate. And maybe it's because they inherently know that they're, whether it's somebody else or themselves, being held to that higher standard, they know that this is just what I have to do. And a level of tenacity is something that I got to bring day in, day out, and just demonstrate a level of perfection that others aren't perhaps held to.
I think that's true. I do.
Yeah. We have, I know in the chat, we've got a few. Eric, do we have any people willing to come on as guests with Mel in the second half yet?
I think we do. Sugi Fuller, I think you have your hand up volunteering to interlocute Mel here in the second half. So I'm going to assume, Suki, you're number one. I am going to suggest, I saw Ellen Naylor out there talking too when you took her name in vain a few minutes ago. So Ellen, I'm going to ask you to raise your hand since chat's not working for whatever silly reason today. Remember, Mel, how I told you everything's gone wrong that can go wrong? Not chat. Yeah, here we are. Chat isn't working. So raise your hand if you want to come on, and we'll upgrade you to panelist. And then Terry Thiel, I think you're also out there and quite active in Q&A. So I'm going to make you number 3. And if you guys, don't want to do it at the point at which I'm going to upgrade you, feel free to tell me, nope, I'm out. And then we'll be open for more volunteers. But we've got plenty of volunteers out there to choose from. I'm going to name Suki, Ellen, Terry in that order as our second half folks.
Okay.
What other things, Mel, do you want our listeners to know about you? Whether it be professional ambitions, personal stuff. I mean, that's the true spirit, right, of this podcast.
Yeah.
Running into the fog. We just demonstrated the chat's got some fog today. Well, that's fine. What kind of fog do you encounter that may not be directly in the here and the now of your work world that you can maybe use as inspiration to some of our listeners today?
So I do want to say, I had a really, really big job at a really big bank. I ran consumer marketing for the 6th largest bank in the States. I had an $80 million marketing budget. I had 40 people that reported to me. And I was miserable. And anybody who worked if there's anybody on here from Truist who knows me, they know I was miserable. And for me, running into the fog was taking a chance and going to this startup company. And it's not a sure thing. I mean, I'm hoping it's going to make my retirement good, but it's not a sure thing. Nothing is a sure thing. But it was very scary to me to do that because I have been in the corporate world my whole life. And, Derek, you and I have talked a couple of times about, I've thought a little about going off on my own on occasions. I've thought about, how do I, do something where I'm not in the corporate world. And so that was a big jump for me personally to do that and leave behind, take a pay cut, leave behind a lot of things that people think you should want. And there's a certain amount of, you work your whole life, your whole career to achieve a certain level. And I always wanted to be a chief marketing officer. And when I was a chief marketing officer, I didn't like being a chief marketing officer. And to be able to put that aside and say, this isn't what I want, and to move on to something else. And now I am a chief marketing officer, but for a tiny company, not a giant, big publicly traded company that, and so I think that took a lot of personal courage on my part, and my family's part to, come with me on this journey because I am the breadwinner for my family. And so to be able to just go and do that big jump, it's been a little empowering, super empowering actually. And I was just talking to somebody I know about being at SellPoint, and that I said, I've never felt as empowered to do my job as I do in this situation. And it's just fantastic. So that was a moment of real clarity for me when I decided to move into this role. I would also go back and echo, I know I'm not saying this just to say it because the two of you are staring at me on the screen, but the times that I have had with my friends from Skip, whether it's the two of you, whether it's some of the folks who are on the participating in the call today, and many people who are not, there is something about that personal connection that you make through a profession that is maybe not your average profession, and you're not a nurse, you're not a doctor, you're not it's special. There's something really, really special about it. And I feel really grateful that I had the opportunity to be part of and I guess I still do have the opportunity to be part of the intelligence community. And it's sappy, maybe I could get a little emotional, but some of the best times I've had have been with the two of you and others on the phone, others on the podcast, and then others. Some of the best times of my life. So I'm always very grateful for that. So.
How sweet. That is super, super.
Yeah, I'm not just trying to blow, air up your backsides or anything, but it's true.
We know that. And maybe we'll get into some of that during Unspeakable here in the second half. We got 1 minute until we cut the social folks loose. I've got Suki, then Ellen, And Terry, I haven't gotten your acceptance on my gauntlet throw, but I'll assume it's you until I get a third volunteer who jumps in ahead of you. Again, sorry about the chat, everybody. It's not working. I think going into that second half, and we'll say goodbye here to the streamers if you haven't converted over yet, but I'd love to hear more about that. And, you know, you're going to have a chance to talk to Suki first. Suki, I'm sure will have a lot to bring up with you, and we're going to try and keep you all to 10-minute segments here too, by the way, because it's really easy to go over in the second half. But kind of leading into that, you know, it's interesting to see where would folks want to start out in an intelligence career if they're planning on going into more of that executive function. You know, yours obviously went into marketing, and you know, I'm thinking of the type of company you work for today has a risk appetite which is completely different from the type of company you worked at where you weren't as fulfilled in that job. Talk about risk appetite as we say goodbye to the streamers and how that affects sort of the executive role and then the appetite for intelligence. How's intelligence different at a big company?
That's a great question. So moving into a smaller company that is in a scale up stage, you know, going beyond startup to scale up, we have to take risks that a big publicly traded company can't take, and we're not. We don't get stuck in kind of analysis paralysis in terms of like just trying to understand every aspect of a decision. I think a lot of times we're going on our gut a little bit more than you would maybe in a big company. We also don't. This is maybe unique to our leadership. Our CEO is very anti-politics, and so we don't have politics. If somebody doesn't like the way something's being done, we talk about it, we solve it together. And it's a different, you know, nobody's jockeying for position. Nobody's trying to, you know, be the first to do this or that. It's just, we're in it together to win together. And it's a kind of a different experience than I've had in other places. One of the things I would say is the ability to do strategy type work, strategic work. Even if you're doing intelligence work and you want to get into more of an executive role, I think being comfortable with ambiguity is really important. And so I think intelligence helps with that, because you don't always know everything, but you know enough of everything to, you know, maybe get yourself in trouble every once in a while. And then I would also say the ability to communicate, super important. That is actually one of the things that I wish I had known better when I was a intelligence practitioner, is I always talked about it, but the importance of communicating in a way that your audience can really respond to. So you guys keep moving and flashing. Hi, Suki.
Perfect answer, Melanie. Suki Fuller, welcome to the meeting once again. Melanie, you belong to Suki now for at least another few minutes. So Suki, she's all yours. Take it away.
Okay.
Hi.
Hello.
Sorry, I'm gonna get all little girly-fied. Sorry, because I haven't seen you, so like it's one of those things. There's all these people that I haven't seen in a long time, and they have been very impactful on my career, because you were also one of the first people that I met when I went to my first Skip conference, which I think was 2002 or 3. I just know the first person
couldn't possibly be that long.
No, you know, we're all young. But it was JP that dragged me to my first, I wouldn't say dragged me, but JP was at Mercyhurst also, and he was like the person that got everybody to go to Skip, although there were only a few of us. But I just wanted to say it's great to see you. I love hearing about where you have gone with your career, because it's really weird when you see people on like LinkedIn, you're going, what are they doing over there now? And for you to go to a startup, thank you, because I have been, as Eric and Derek know, especially Eric, I have always been professing about startups and how there is a need for people with our skill set in startups. I've been talking about how the lean cycle is basically the same as the intelligence cycle.
Oh yeah.
And that people just need to think about them overlaying on each other, and that is it. And startups should not be thinking about intelligence just as market intelligence at the end when they've got their products that might not be going anywhere.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it's just it's lovely because now I'm like, oh look, I point to you as a case study. It's like there is somebody that comes from this background that is in a chief marketing role. Guess what, people? You need people like us.